Today I'm going to be speaking with Regina Victor, who is a tarot reader and a multidisciplinary artist. Using the divinatory tools of tarot storytelling and the artistic practice of theatrical jazz, they employ the black and trans radical imagination to transmute the past, reflect the present, and co-create possible futures. Today, Regina, or Pharaoh, as they are known in terms of their tarot reading, will be talking about unlearning the stereotypes of romantic love and liberating romantic love into its highest potentials using these archetypes. So, Regina is going to help us through some of the key cards in the tarot deck to see how we can optimize their potentials. Welcome to Sex Psychic Psychedelics, Regina. It's so great to see you again.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm so good. I was just thinking we've been on quite a little ride together. How would you describe our ride thus far?
I would describe it as divinely ordained. I would describe it as full of whimsy and healing. Our journey has been so incredible. It's been great to meet you over the past year, and really get to know you through the various events and healing modules.
Well, I second that. It's been beautiful to meet you in Festival Land, outside of Festival Land, into our new iteration of Heart Party, which you were such an important part of as a reader and as a creative spirit, and the show we've been cooking up. So much good collaboration. And you're a really interesting reader from what I've seen. You've got a deep connection to the archetypes of, does that feel correct to you to say?
Yeah, I've been practicing tarot for about 5.5 years. I've been a metaphysician prior to that, so I'm very into numerology, very into relationships of elements, which appear a lot in the tarot. And so I try to take all of that knowledge and use the cards as a sort of medium for my intuitive readings. But it's all from a framework of love, actually. That's been like a mission in my life, is to just reprogram these intimate relationships in the ways that we relate to ourselves and others.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually just reading your bio and this line leapt out at me. They, meaning you, reimagine interpersonal relationships from a framework of love. And I love that. I love that line, and it goes straight to my core when I read it. But I also thought it was worth dissecting it. I mean, shouldn't it go without saying that interpersonal relationships should be drawn along the lines of love? I mean, it's interesting. You think that there's a relearning that we need to do, or a
Yes.
learning, maybe not a relearning. I don't know.
Yes, I mean, I think this last Pluto and Capricorn transit from 2008 until just a couple months ago really was a time of individuation, a time of hard work, a time of capitalism, a time where the economy was the number one thing we were caring about. And with this shift into Aquarius, we're moving into a more collective interest. We're interested in collective health, collective services, feeding each other, these kinds of things. And so I've began this work really around 2016, and it's taken a lot of mediums. It shows up in my theater work, it shows up in my writing, and most recently it's shown up in my tarot, because since around 2016-17, it just seemed like we were talking past each other, and we knew what a section of culture that we were a part of wanted, but we weren't connected with our own desires as much. So that's really what this work has been about, is like, where is your desire? Where is your love and care? And how can you align with other things that vibrate that way?
Beautiful. And I want to dive into specific archetypes with you. But first of all, I want to get clear on this Aquarius business. When's this Aquarius thing starting, and what should we expect?
Yes, so I believe it was November 19th that Pluto officially shifted into Aquarius, and Pluto stays in a sign for about 29 to 30 years. And the shortest I think it's ever stayed in a sign is 13 years in Scorpio. So it's quite a long transit, and it's the planet of power and the underworld. And Aquarius is innovation and technology and groundbreaking revelations, essentially. It's ruled by Uranus. So we have this shift of power towards alternate solutions, really. It's time to be wily. It's time to take the road less traveled. That thing that you've always wanted to do that people told you was a little strange, do that. Uh,
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I actually just came out of a beautiful Reiki session. I'm interviewing a Reiki healer later this week, and so I was like sampling her work. And what kept coming to me actually was authenticity. I was thinking about this podcast and what is, you know, what is the encouragement that I'm wanting to give through it? Because really, for me, it is a vehicle for encouragement for all of us. And yes, I think encouragement around authenticity feels really apt. I think that, each individual is so extraordinary, really. And that's kind of what I want to see show itself.
Yeah.
And I suppose to me as well, like authenticity is love, really. It's a self-love, and it's a love of what is, not a love of what might be.
Yes, I think that's a great way to put it. And a love of what is also can be something. I always say that your future is your present decisions come back into play. So, like, what is can also be what you're building. Like that can be something that is so present and so real to you that it just will appear, right? And that may look like day-to-day tasks in a cumulative way, but it's very possible in the decisions that we make.
I love this conversation, and it also relates to this heart party number 2 that I know that you're going to be involved in one way or another. I'm going to make sure of it. And we've been talking about Valentine's Day, and how love gets trapped in these boxes, not just on Valentine's Day, but, every day. But Valentine's being an opportunity to talk about how we might liberate romantic archetypes a bit more, maybe to mine them a bit more in our relationships with ourselves and each other. So I wanted to look at some key tarot cards with you and kind of explore these tarot cards that relate to love, to romantic love, and how we relate to the ideas of romantic love.
Yes.
So can we just kick off and just go straight into a card? Because, well, one of my favorite cards is the Ace of Cups. Which I think is, so, well, you tell us, what is the Ace of Cups, and what might it mean in terms of romantic love, or how we relate to it?
Well, I love that you brought up Heart Party, and I'm going to use it to kind of frame the Ace of Cups because a lot of the work that I did there was around this card. And so the Ace of Cups itself, the ace, the beginning, the one, singularity, right? Always the start of an impulse. The element of cups is water. So it's emotions, creativity, love, and crushes, all of the good, gooey stuff, emotional literacy. And so the Ace of Cups has this sort of fountain of youth quality to it. It is this constant fountain of love and energy, and it is that emotional spark. It's the seed of passion. And
do you have it? Can you hold it up to the camera?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Beautiful. So if you're just listening, the picture is of an open palm holding a sort of chalice cup that's just, the cup is runneth over. I don't know. The cup runneth over. It's an image of bounty and, I don't know, like initiation as well, right?
Yes, very much so. So when we're coming into a new love relationship, or a new creative endeavor, we might pull the Ace of Cups. That's very common. And as you can see, yes, this cup is overflowing over the palm and into the source water, right? This is sort of that primordial water essence that connects us all emotionally, the language of feeling.
And I guess it corresponds with the, in the sort of traditional playing pack, the playing card pack would be the suit of hearts, right?
Yes.
So cups being like hearts. Now, listen, before we proceed, I realize I've got quite a kind of off-piste way of working with tarot that I don't know if you're going to be down with. So let's just see.
I'm excited.
It's just a massive challenge. So look, the traditional way with tarot is you pull cards, right? And then there's this idea, there's this magnetism, and the cards are describing something about you.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the idea of using cards more kind of intentionally. So I may not pull that card blind, but I might decide, actually, I want to meditate on the Ace of Cups. I want to bring more of that Ace of Cups energy into my life. So I might do, shock horror, an intentional spread.
Yes.
Deviant that I am. What do you think about that?
Well, I think tarot can be used as a manifestation tool just as much as it can be a divinatory tool. You didn't hear it from me, but I may or may not have set a couple of decks on fire in the endeavors of magic.
I need to hear more about this, obviously.
The cards can be used a number of ways, right? Altar accidents do happen, be safe. But using a traditional spread, when I hear that in terms of laying out cards that you sort of know you want to see, or an archetype that you have ambition towards embodying, am I understanding that right? Yeah. So essentially, what that would do is allow you to visualize, as I was just talking about, like your right now can also be your future. What would that look like? What would you have to embody in order to
Mm.
bring that to you? Is definitely something. And I would also add, especially for beginning tarot readers or people just interested in tarot, that this is one of the recommended ways to get to know your deck, actually, is to pull out a card a day, meditate on its meaning, and sort of embody the principles or notice them in your life. So you're doing good.
Okay. Oh, great, great. I thought I might be fired. I'd be like, that was a really short interview. You're like, how dare you? Oh, okay. So incarnating, I guess, the positive attributes of the Ace of Cups would be, feeling juicy about possibility, feeling the imminence of the sap rising, feeling that kind of like, oh, what's going to happen next kind of energy.
Yes. Yes. Like if I were to pull the Ace of Cups, I would be like, love is coming your way. This could be many genres of love, I think is the beautiful thing about the Ace
Mm.
of Cups. It's a little more encompassing. One could say the Ace of Cups aligns with the concept of agape. There's agape and eros, and then of course platonic love, right? So platonic is friendship, eros is desire and connection between two things, and agape is the love of the all or the divine, sort of seeing yourself in everything. So it's a time of flow, it's a time of potential abundance, it's a time of potential new creative opportunities or self expression opportunities, and a love that you can be yourself in for sure.
This is so good. And I'm actually going to encourage the listener, if they haven't done this already, if you haven't done this already, to actually try on that idea, maybe starting with agape instead of, romantic love. Agape is coming my way. Like, how does that feel? And I wonder, I think it's a good sort of measure of where you're at in your trust. If I say that to myself now, I can go with it. I can go with it like 2/3. I still
Mhm.
have there's still a little bit like, like, is it too fruity? Too fruity? Never.
Never too much whimsy, never too much.
Let's unlid the whimsy. Okay, beautiful. Think that's great, actually. And that even that idea feels very upward flowing. Like a fountain doesn't accept naysaying. Right, if you naysay to a fountain, if you're like, it's not really going to happen, the fountain would be like, yes, it is. It's happening now. Look at me.
Water always finds a way. Water will always find a way. So if you think about like love will always find its way to you, that opportunity will always find its way to you. I would say if you have an opportunity that came up and you pull this card and that particular opportunity doesn't play out, it's okay because the flow of energy is still coming in a perfect way for you.
This is a great card for 2025. I'm feeling it.
Yes. And if I may, talking about like going back to authenticity and also talking about like you can't really naysay the fountain, right? Like these sorts of ideas of focus that also come with love and what we're focused on, approaching it more from the agape, as you said, right? I would love to talk about the Queen of Wands.
Bring it.
So the Queen of Wands is usually depicted in a throne, usually dressed in some kind of orange or yellow colors. Here she has the sunflower, exhibiting her relationship to leadership, decisiveness, and the revelations of the soul. So being guided by the light of the sun. And of course, guided by her very cute little black cat familiar here. So she's in touch with nature.
Wait. Hold on a second. Do you have ladybugs on your fingernail?
I have little apples.
Apple is so sweet. Your nails are amazing. Amazing
Thank
nails.
you. I said, give me evil queen for
Almost
the.
as good as the tarot card itself.
Thank you. My
Yeah,
technician is
really.
an artist.
Beautiful. Okay, so tell us about her. Tell us about the Queen of Wands and how we can kind
Yes.
of, I was going to say use her, but I don't know if we want to use her.
Well, the way that I think about these is like just like deities, tarot cards are like faces that you can look at to invoke a certain energy. So when we talk about using, it's more about like embodying, right? So yeah, we are borrowing these principles and being lent this energy from the divine in the shape of the Queen of Wands is how I like to think about it. But the Queen, right, is going to be the embodiment of an element, right? So the very thing that is. And Wands is fire. So it's generativity, it's willpower, it's the things we can make out of nothing. It is that Mars energy. And I think it's really lovely to talk about this card while Mars is in Leo, because I really believe that this transit, we're in retrograde now. We will move into retrograde in Cancer January 6th, and Mars will continue to be retrograde until I think February 3rd is when it will
Wait,
finally
so
start.
we're in retrograde for like 3 months? Is that what's
Yeah,
happening?
it's a
Okay.
while.
Buckle up.
It's a
All right.
while.
Okay.
And because it's bouncing between Leo and Cancer, which is like the divine feminine, I'm thinking there's a lot of divine feminine willpower being awakened at this time, which I'm really excited about, and what that means for love. I think that our inner compass of what we want in our entire lives, being focused as possible, will attract the kind of love that we want and deserve, right? I think there's going to be a little elevation of standards, perhaps. I want that for us.
Talk more about that. I mean, you speak with a lot of people. I mean, you and
Yeah.
I both speak with a lot of people, and I think this could be an interesting thing for us to compare notes on.
Yes.
Like, what are you finding in this regard? Do you feel like people don't have high enough standards in love, or
I think that we're in a culture of pessimistic acceptance, is what I would call it, right? Like it's sort of like, I'll take it because I'm supposed to, or I'll take it because it's what I got, versus that sort of radical love or radical hospitality, right? Of just like the flow of, I know exactly what I want, and therefore I will welcome only what is in alignment with that. And it's not hostile, it's not mean, it's not about cutting things off or burning bridges. It's just that when you're so in alignment with your goal, everything that's not in alignment with you does start to naturally fall away. You know, I'm sure we've experienced that with friends and things.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think, when you're in a tarot session with someone or when you're in a therapy session with someone, the insecurities come forwards to show themselves and hopefully be alchemized or dissolved. And not everybody has the opportunity to have tarot readings, therapy sessions, and all of these kinds of healing experiences, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, is so that we can kind of like share all this good stuff. But yeah, I would say in general, doubt hangs around. Self-doubt hangs around. Just because it's there, it doesn't mean it's the thing to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose, thinking of this card, the Queen of Wands, it begs the question, yes, you've had your history, but what do you want to carry forwards from that? What do you want to carry forwards? And not even from your history, but what do you could pluck it from the sky. What would you like to carry forwards?
Yes. And how can you use what you have, right? So cuz you can still use fear that is present or trauma or pain that is present to move forward into something that is not holding that weight in that way. So for example, I always say that courage is actually facing your fear, assessing the risk, knowing the risk, and doing it anyway. And it's very different than bravery, where you don't really know the risk, but you're just kind of running through the challenges.
Mm.
Courage is something that is earned through experience, right? The more that you face something that you are deeply, deeply frightened of, and that could be your own happiness, the easier it gets, right, to actually achieve those things. So the presence of fear is not something to be deterred by. It's still energy that you can use to grow.
Right. So you're embodying the Queen of Wands right now?
I like to think so.
Pretty
I'm
much.
embodying my passion. Yes. I love this card. I just think the more we tap into that inner spark, inner fire, moth to a flame, the love will
Give
come.
me an example of it. Like
Mm.
how one might embody this. Maybe it could be an example from your own life, or you could make up an example
Well,
in a relationship, a love situation.
I'm thinking about, I actually had a client recently where this card came up. This is a couple of months ago. And she was very like, I would love a reading on love. And I kept trying, and I really was trying, girl. And I kept getting all these things about career, like the Emperor, very decisive Mars driven cards. And the Queen of Wands was the final card when I asked, but how can this person draw love into their life? And so I said, it's very possible that you will meet this person through your vocation, through your work, but because your work is so civically minded, it's so much about changing the world and what is possible, that I think they want your love interest to align with your passion. So if you pursue this and you're going to conferences and you're meeting people and you're promoting your work, you're going to meet someone on that path who is already walking it with you, rather than having to go out and find someone.
Right.
The last thing I would say about it is the King of Wands, her companion, is, I would say, the container for an element. It is the base and something that helps shape the fire. So I would say the king is like a fireplace, right? And the queen is the fire. So not just anything can contain fire as a substance. You need something really special and fitted to you.
Okay, bring on those special king fireplaces. And of course, I'm imagining these are all, in their own way, non-binary cards. We're talking about the queen that could belong to anybody. Is that right?
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up because
Yeah.
I am also non-binary, and I think that with these cards, what I like to do is I like to read relationships in terms of sun and moon.
Mm.
Because I'm like, there's always sort of that sun, which we can think of as masculine of center, which is pushing goals forward. It is usually a breadwinning energy. It is usually a decisive energy. It's usually laying the foundations, right? And the moon is a softer, more nurturing presence. It is usually more in the emotional management and expression and value and depth to the relationship. It's where the relationship really grows. And I find that no matter what gender of the couple, there's always kind of that driving force and that receiving force, that softer force. So I call them sun and moon.
And can sun and moon be yin yang within the couple? It doesn't have to be one is sun and one is moon. You can have different parts within the people.
Absolutely. And there will
Yeah.
often be times where one person is stepping into a moon energy and the other person stepping into sun energy. In most long-term partnerships, this will fluctuate naturally.
Yeah. Yeah. Do people ask you about relationships more than anything else in readings?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's what I have a friend who's a tarot reader and she's just so sick of it. She's like, can't. I mean, she says, that the women are always saying, when are they going to come? And, that the women are longing for love, to the extent that she gets irritated by it. But I think,
Well,
I mean, is it irritating to you? Like, how do you see that?
don't, but it's because, and this is both a personal and a client-based journey. Especially over the summer, I've really been studying this concept. And it started with masculine of center people and men, but I started to notice it in myself and in others, which is when we experience Eros, right, this lust or desire, it is the beginning of our ability to enter devotion. Right. So it's not just about romantic love. It's a gateway towards that real connection with the ultimate, and it expresses a desire for something greater. So just because someone has started at romantic love or lust does not mean, like, there's usually something bigger for them to connect to. And the love reading is just what got them in my chair.
Yes, yes. Love is the bait. Romantic love is the bait. It is actually. It is the bait for growth because you know how that goes, right? You meet someone and you're like, oh my God, my dreams have come true. Cut to, you're like in the worst fight of your life. You're feeling so vulnerable and you're like, oh my God, I got tricked into growth, They tricked me again. They tricked me. And I have to do all this healing that I wouldn't have done on my own, because you can only go so far with your inner journey. I mean, I've tried to take that one all the way and it doesn't go all the way. I don't think it does. I think we have to figure it out with other people. And we don't have to. We can do what we want, but I feel like you will cap out on your healing journey if you try and just only do it alone. And you will have to grow if you try and do it with other people.
Yes, relationships are by and above the fastest way to grow. And I think, just speaking from my own experience, like, the most difficult thing and where things go wrong is just really not being able to release. Like, when you've learned the thing or the person has introduced a critical new emotional layer to your life, to then let it go. Like, that is usually where the pain happens, is not knowing when the ending has come.
Letting the relationship go.
Hmm.
Yeah, I bet that's something that comes up a lot in readings.
Very often. And
yeah,
I do have a card about that.
Okay, bring it on. Let's see.
I would say the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Let's
Yeah.
get close to this card. Let's get intimate with the devil. Tell us all about him.
Yes.
Him or
So
them. There, I've slipped into a genderization.
they
Them.
are out here
Yeah. Yeah.
taking all shapes.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. The idea that the devil would be just one is incredibly naive. Hello.
You know,
Yeah.
stay woke.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Tell us about the picture. Actually, I'm really curious. Yeah.
Yes. So the devil is depicted many different ways across tarot spreads, but the things that are consistent in what we're looking at here, this is a kind of a humanoid figure with a ram's head and the horns and wings, so very stereotypical depiction of the devil. They're usually sitting elevated above two creatures, in this case humans, that are bound to this block. Now, what I want us to pay attention to is that this chain around the necks of these people is incredibly loose. Could you not lift this over your head and take it off, right? So the thing about the devil is that it is really about what we think we're attached to more than what we're actually bound to. One of my favorite tarot readers, Courtney Alexander, she created the Dust to Onyx tarot deck. Her deck talks about the devil, and I'm paraphrasing, but it is as a kaleidoscope of play that feeds our addictions to people, places, and things. So what you're bound to is really an immersive work of your imagination.
That's so good. I'm going to ask you to repeat that because for some reason the recording cut out. I did hear it. From what you're bound to. So what you're actually bound to is
What you're bound to is really the work of your imagination. And so you can, using your imagination, unbind or bind yourself to something else is usually what I recommend, rather than just doing the unbinding. Just what are you dedicated to? That's why that Queen of Wands work is so important. Because if you're not dedicated to something, you can be promised to anything.
it's really good. It's making me think of the devotion word again with romantic love. So I think, a lot of people are in people who want to be in relationships who are often in a kind of a low grade sulk, I would say, about romantic love. Like, well, where is it? Or it's not coming. And along with that, there's the idea that if it did come, it would have a sort of fixing quality, or it would be a salve. And I don't know about that. Through experience. I don't know if it does fix. I don't know if it's a salve. I think it's a doorway to something else. Incredible. It's a total blessing. But you said devotion, and I think that's a great word for it and a great word to apply to romance in general, because I do feel like where things get toxic in our romantic archetypes is in our sort of passivity or laziness around them, the idea that we should be filled, and the negative side of magical thinking. Yeah. And this word devotion implies, being wakeful in your love and taking action from your love, and responsibility. I think that's really what I'm trying to get to is responsibility in love, that we are at least 50% co-creators.
Yes, I think responsibility is so important because, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to take responsibility for things in our love life or things in general that aren't so shiny and great and that are even hurtful. And what I would say to that is to be very careful with yourself in that process. It's not a process of like self-shaming, right? Or self-blaming, and you know this, but just to say that it really is a process of saying, okay, this is something that I allowed in the past. I now know what it looks like, and I don't actually have to do that again. And once you start to say no to things, the things that pop up for you to say yes to get a little bit sweeter, and you just keep working on it like that. Yeah, that was beautiful.
Great. That's great. So reshaping the playground, reshaping the devil's playground.
Yes, because, the devil, I also think that something that people get frightened of this card. But the devil really is just the earth. I mean, it is relationship. It's every relationship we have.
Well, absolutely. And it's quite interesting, if you don't mind holding up that card one more time. I don't know if this is just my devilish imagination, but it looks very Buddha-like the way that they're sitting. They're cross-legged up on a little stand. I mean, hold on a second. It almost looks like the hand that's raised is in some kind of a mudra. So maybe the devil and the Buddha are not so far apart if we use the devil as a gateway. But yes, I think that fear that comes up, like you said on that card, is pretty interesting in itself, isn't it? If you just look at your own reaction to the devil card when it comes up, your whole shadow will describe itself.
Actually, yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about the images is that they will suddenly make you be like, oh, That is, I'm afraid of this thing or I'm associating it with this thing. It evokes something just like any piece of art that can tell you a lot about yourself.
Right.
And yeah, I think the hand itself, I believe, is like the temptation or feeling of being trapped is a sign of the horns. And again, we're in this language of feeling trapped, not being trapped, right? Like, I think that, we're not to get too into perceptions of reality, but let's
Come
say,
on, of course.
not to,
Why
but
else are we here?
I'll use my theater training to make a more tangible example, but there's something called viewpoints, and in it you investigate your relationship to objects. And so if I have this chair that I'm sitting on, I'll say, what's my relationship to this chair? And I will move around this chair a million different ways, finding every way that my body could possibly relate to this chair. Our relationship to reality is very much the same. We have a picture in our head and we know how we're supposed to interact with that object, what it does, everything about it. We have agreed on that in a way that is the devil that is in our kaleidoscope of play, right? But relationship and matters of the heart are the things that I think we can most easily affect, right? Not everyone is psychically trained to the point where they're going to be trying to move a chair, but we can move a human being emotionally.
Trying to keep track. I'm like, okay.
I know.
So
Thank gosh people can rewind.
okay, wait. So, meaning we have these ideas about relationships that are somewhat solid in one place, like a chair would be in one place.
Yes.
But we need to move around it.
Yes.
We need to move around our ideas about what things are supposed to look like. Or even, I think, what happened. I think there's this thing that obviously ties in a lot with romantic love is, what happened with your parents.
Yes, very much so.
So I have abandonment issues because my father did this when I was this age, and this makes me feel like this when you do this. Now, there's truth to that, but that's not me moving around it like moving around a chair, is it?
Yes.
I suppose, well, I'll just share this and then I want to hear what you say. But I guess if I was being less solid about it, I'd say there are all these feelings moving through me and there are ideas about what's happening in the present that seem to relate to ideas about what apparently happened in the past. And then there's an overarching structure over those stories, which is how much I can handle that or not. So there are layers of chairs.
There are layers of chairs. And I mean, I think that's right on the money, actually, that I got excited in the middle because I was like, no, that's exactly it. But like, yeah, I can, if this chair is my relationship pattern, I can be on top of it. I can put it in front of me. I can stand in front of it so you can't see it. I can have all kinds of relationships to it of my choosing.
So how do we rewire ourselves through tarot? I mean, is it about loosening our grip on our stories, becoming more creative?
It's a really good question, Jane, actually. I think for me, it's been about learning to recognize my intuition. So when I'm reading cards, I'll look at something or the meaning of something or an image and I'll go, I know that's right. Right. And as I continued to practice, that got sharper and sharper to the point where that attention can go outward. When I do not trust my intuition now, I really see such clear consequences that before were just my life. Now they're like outliers, but there's quite a few minor catastrophes that are altogether avoidable if you follow your own gut feeling. And so thinking about just like relationship, there are so many problems where like I have realized my relationship to the problem is not to solve it. My relationship to the problem may be to go to bed and wait and see what happens. And half the time when I wake up, it has solved itself.
It's the thing. Being less meddlesome with time, that's a tough one.
It's trust. It's self-trust and trust in the universe, if I had to put it in a word.
So what's the card for trust?
Oh, fun. Okay, I love this. So I would say that a card archetypally that feels like trust is the Lovers. And I want to point something out before as I describe this card, that you see the Lovers is represented by the Roman numeral for 6, and the Devil card is actually represented by the Roman numerals for 15. So numerologically, 1 and 5 is 6, and the Lovers is also 6. So these cards have a conversation with each other, right? But the difference is that instead of the 1 and the 5, so the self against perception of the world, here we have the 6, which is a fully integrated shadow and light. You brought up yin and yang earlier. It is the full integration of the shadow and light working in tandem. On the card, you have this beautiful winged angel sitting in the clouds in a starry sky. There's a fruit tree on one side and a tree that represents the wands, which is interesting, willpower. So we have fire and earth on either side here, and air in the sky. And then we have these 2 humans about to hold hands, presented in the nude and vulnerability, right? And union. So this can also be associated with Gemini, the reconciliation of 2 halves.
So that relates to trust in what way?
I think it relates to the type of vulnerability that you feel with another person, trust and openness with another person, that you actually kind of become a singular mindset. So this could be affiliated with like the concept of marriage, for example, those kinds of more holy unions, agape-based unions, right? Yeah, so the development of and the embodiment of trust, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's that that would be the, if you put it in a linear way, the evolution of lovers you'd start with that kind of kinetic, the sparks that happen between 2 people on a chemical level. And I can see how those sparks can relate to the devil because they bring up, well, it brings up fear, right? I mean, obviously all sorts of hormonal things are happening when you start falling in love. But there's also this fear because suddenly the stakes are high, because suddenly there's access to this magical creation energy that we don't understand, but it sure feels amazing.
Yeah.
Right? And so, what if we have it? What if we don't have it? What if it's mine? What if I like them? What if they don't like me? What if it ends? What if it keeps going? What if.
All the things. And I love that you brought up the fear aspect because I do think that is where these cards kind of can mirror each other. Is that, the devil is this sort of like, I'm bound to something from a place of lack or worry that it could leave me. And the lovers is the ultimate expression of a binding through free will, but it's something that is feeding back into the love of the universe. It's a generative love. It is something that is making 2 halves of a whole. And so in a way, and this is a little bit, and maybe edgy to say this, but the biblical interpretation of Satan is the questioner, and it is built on the idea that you cannot have faith without doubt. So the trials and tribulations that Satan puts humans through around like what kind of choices will they make, the lovers is someone who has successfully completed those trials. They have been asked so many times what they want and presented with so many options that were not it, that they finally ended up through discernment at a bond like the lovers.
I see. I didn't think of it that way. So the way you're describing it is much more conscious than I thought of it, which was more just like, magnets kind of coming together and then they may evolve or they may not evolve. But this feels to me, your version feels like, 2 people who've been through the Queen of Wands kind of preparation step where they're like getting really clear on what they want and then they know how to find each other because they found their authenticity and they're devoted to finding the mirror, I suppose, or they found the mirror and then the other person just shows up, meaning they found themselves.
Yes, that's so beautiful. That's exactly it. Like attracts like, and when we like our reflection, we attract a beautiful reflection to us in the world.
Yeah, it just works like that, doesn't it? I mean, there's no way out of that one, I don't think. But I like the idea that I keep wanting to say agape, but I don't know if there are different pronunciations. Agape is how you say it, which sounds more elegant.
Latin.
I like it. Latin. That old language. Anyway, that is the goal, that the universal love is the goal, that the greater love, the collective, the multidimensional is the goal.
Yes, and if we're
Yeah.
lucky, our Eros brings us to that person to experience it with.
Eros. So remind me which Eros corresponds to.
So Eros is the kind of one-to-one desire or lust or earthly love.
Okay. Okay. That brings us to the other through which we can develop the universal.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Beautiful. What would be the card for developing the universal without the lover's card? if just you or I were single and we just wanted to practice universal love every day?
I got two for you.
Okay, good. I was going to say, I mean, there's got to be a few.
That's tough to decide. Yeah, that's it.
Tiebreaker. Okay, what
It's
do
a
we got?
great prompt, though. It's a great provocation. So I have two cards. They are sequential in the major arcana. So these are the High Priestess, which is a woman sitting in a purple cloak, which feels important, sitting between a black pillar and a white pillar, holding a laptop containing the secrets to the universe in front of
She's got a laptop. I hadn't noticed that. That's so funny.
They're cute. And this is the Modern Witches Tarot deck by Lisa Sturl. It's so lovely.
I love this deck. It's so cool. I've got to get it. Yeah.
And the most relevant thing is the curtain of pomegranates behind her. And pomegranates are very significant in many cultures, but they represent most often Persephone, who is the maiden goddess in Greek mythology who was taken by Hades to the underworld, right? So it's this sort of like representation of both knowledge and also what it takes to achieve it. And I think in a way, like contracts and love in Persephone's story are obviously very evident. So as a queen of the underworld who negotiated seasons, I think she knows a lot about how to regulate Earth. So that is a more balancing our light and dark with the High Priestess. This is searching for the inner knowledge, healing our own trauma, kind of searching for how to love ourselves, I would say. Which leads us to the Empress. The Empress is the expression of the divine feminine represented by the number 3. And she has this Venus symbol on a heart down here. She's sitting with the river of life flowing behind her. It's a woman in a very cozy chair with beautiful crystals and trees and water flowing all around her. Now that is the ultimate expression of self-love to me, is the Empress, represented by Aphrodite, who is the goddess of Eros, of lust and desire, and the beauty in all there is. So the Empress is seeing beauty in everything we relate to, and therefore assuming we ourselves are very beautiful, and allowing that to just be a closed loop of love between you and the flowers in your house, between you and your cat, but you and your mom, whatever it is.
Let's keep going. You and your cat, you and your mum. Who else? You and the postman.
Yes, FedEx is out there right now. No, it really will do something. Once you're like, it's really everywhere. It's beautiful. Glinda from Wicked is the Empress,
I just saw it last night. So good, so good.
She's so cute. I love her.
She's wonderful. I know. It's so good. This is very good. And then, so what about the World card? I was thinking about that. Or is that not so much about love?
Let me get that one out. So it's funny because I pulled that out, and the Fool was right here, which is the direct neighbor of the world. There's the beginning and the end. So
right.
That's
I love
so
the Fool
funny.
card. Yes.
Too cute. But I do think the world, just to speak about it as I pull up an image for y'all, the World card is the end of the journey of the major arcana. So I think the Fool, which is present, wanted to be known.
Fall in love, it's very important. The unlearning card.
They're falling, literally. They're about to step off this cliff.
Willingly, it seems.
Willingly and joyously, with their iPod in their ears and their best dog by their side, and the sun is shining, and they are just on the journey with full trust.
And they have to fall off a cliff, right? Or there is no story, there is no journey.
So you must meet some kind of obstacle in order to figure out that you can act in opposition to it, right? Responsibility, you brought this up earlier, is actually the ability to respond. So thinking of it as an opportunity rather than an obligation really carries us very far, in my humble opinion.
I love that. Very cool.
It's so funny. No matter how many times I go through a stack of cards, the one I'm looking for manages to just not be there.
Where is the world when you need it?
Honestly, it's in here, and I saw it earlier, but it's.
Don't worry. Feel free to just describe it. You can describe it with words.
Yeah, and the World card is a pretty standard depiction through most decks. So it is a woman dancing in Jubilee, and actually I have my book so I can show representation of it, but it's a woman kind of dancing, floating in Jubilee, usually in a circular sphere with ribbons all around, and there's 4 of the fixed zodiac signs. I'm picturing it in my head, so my eyes are closed. But the 4 zodiac signs of Taurus, Leo, Aquarius, and I believe Scorpio, to represent the changing of the seasons. And so this is very little, but you might be able to see that there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Great. Yeah. So The world card is, like I said, the neighbor or the end of the fool's cycle, right? So if you think of it as a circle, they're right next to each other. The fool starts in a place of joy and the world card ends in a place of joy. So it is after we have completed all the phases of our growth journey. We have arrived at our fabulous conclusion. We are basically in a cosmic dance party with all of the elements of mind, body, and soul and divine in perfect harmony.
Okay, that's heart party right there. Yes.
Definitely that. Yes.
Yes, yes. I love this. So basically, we start in joy and we end in joy, and that's all we really need to know. The rest is just,
Yes.
moving and grooving, ups and downs, bits and bobs.
But you will always arrive. I mean, that's kind of the beautiful thing is like, as long as you keep doing, right, you will always arrive. I always say that every choice you make is information, right, about which direction you want to go. And as soon as you have that information, you can make a new set of choices to get you closer to where you want to go. So just do anything.
That's interesting. You have an action bias.
I do. I
Yeah.
have a strong action and then retain the information. Action, retain the information. I love that
I
vibration.
like that. I'm going to think about that. Thank you. I'm writing it down. Action.
I love that. Very high priestess. The high priestess is the experiment. She runs
Action.
experiments.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought. I just think about her going inwards, but so she does the action and then she gets the info from the action and she meditates on it.
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
I'm
Yeah.
an oversharer, so just very simply, like
Yeah.
going on dates, I had to be like, what if I didn't share my entire life story on the next date? And let's just see what happens. Let's just do something different, you know? It was a good choice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, you definitely got to test it out. This has been so great. And obviously, we need to do more because it's so fun talking about these archetypes. There's so much beauty in them. And I love the freedom of them as well. I love the sort of non-religious, non-proselytizing nature. We really do get to interpret ourselves along the lines of what feels authentic to us in relation to these pictures. So, I'm a fan. What I'd love to do is round out. Now, normally I ask for a wish for yourself and a wish for the world, but I'm slightly changing it because we're growing Heart Party and it's so fun talking directly about the heart. So I'd love you to share a wish for your own heart. And then if your heart had a party, what would it look like?
How cute. Okay. I was surprised by the second part. Okay. I would say, I think a wish for my heart, something I'm really thinking about, is I wish for my heart to be even more expansive, to have more capacity, not just for others, but for myself, so that I am constantly cycling energy and using energy and not letting anything be stuck. I really want to encourage its flow. And then if my heart had a party, what would it look like? Honestly, I think I'm a little bit more like goth internally than I appear externally. I do think my heart party would look strangely like Berghain, like that German club.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up, but I'm kind of imagining a gothic German club,
Some
which
people are
sounds
laughing at me right now.
I'm enjoying this, and I'm also super surprised. I had no idea you were goth inside. Okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
I really
Yeah.
think so. I think it would be very like we're all in black. It's giving high fashion. It's giving like thick Gucci sunglasses. It's giving like a lot of music. And I feel like just everything, the food, like everything is black and red. And I'm just living for that. Now, I think that I am a person of duality.
So you want to have? I know what's happening here. You want two hot parties. Tell me the other one.
Well, the other one is the kind that you throw. That is my truest. It's like like I love the very like light feminine touch of the type of heart party and space that you make. It's very I feel like I could float away and everyone who comes to see me for tarot readings also has that same vibe of just like so light, and we never get to kind of shed our worries. And just going back to the Ace of Cups, I loved doing that exercise that sort of reminds me of this question of a wish for the heart. It was based on the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Hearts and invoking that inner desire. Like I just love being in a room where everyone is doing that at the same time. It's very powerful.
I couldn't agree more. And yeah, hope to see you in so many iterations of heart parties. Trust that's going to happen given our track record thus far. More
Yeah.
actions, more heart-based actions. Thank you for your time, darling. Oh, where do we find you if you want to be found?
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram at official Regina V. You can find me on TikTok under Pharaoh and Tarot, and my website, reginavictor.com.
Okay, beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you so much, love.
Thank you.